My beloved child, pause here for a moment. Do not move past these words as though they are ordinary, because what is reaching you now has been carried through silence, through distance, through nights of unspoken longing, and through a heart that has finally run out of places to hide. Something is waiting for you inside this message. Something your soul has felt approaching, even when your mind tried to dismiss it. What you are about to hear was meant to find you at this exact moment, because the person connected to your heart has just formed a final message for you, and heaven has witnessed every trembling thought behind it. Do not skip this moment. The message is not final because love has ended. It is final because an old chapter can no longer continue in the same way. Something has reached its limit. A silence has become too heavy. A distance has become too painful. A truth has become too powerful to remain buried. Your soulmate has been carrying words that were never spoken, and tonight those words have risen so strongly within them that even they can no longer pretend everything is fine. They have tried to distract themselves. They have filled their hours with noise, responsibilities, conversations, and empty routines. They have smiled when others were watching. They have answered simple questions with simple replies. They have acted as though nothing is missing. But when the room grows quiet, when the lights are low, when no one is near enough to see behind their expression, your presence returns to them with overwhelming force. Not merely your face. Not merely your voice. They remember the way they felt when they believed they still had time. That is what is breaking through their defenses now. They believed there would always be another day to explain. Another chance to reach out. Another opportunity to say what fear prevented them from saying before. They thought your heart would remain exactly where they left it, waiting patiently while they fought their own confusion. But something changed. A sudden realization entered their spirit, and for the first time, they understood that time does not pause simply because someone is afraid. Stay until the end, because the deepest part of their message has not yet been revealed. There is one sentence they have written, erased, rewritten, and stared at for longer than you would imagine. It is the sentence that could change how you see every silent moment between you. My child, your soulmate has been revisiting the past, but not in the way you may think. They are not only remembering what happened. They are recognizing what they failed to understand while it was happening. Moments that seemed small have taken on new meaning. Words you spoke casually now sound prophetic in their memory. The patience you showed, the care you offered, the tenderness you tried to hide, and even the times you stepped back to protect your own heart are now becoming clear to them. They are beginning to see that you were never asking for perfection. You were asking for honesty. You were not demanding that they solve every problem. You were asking them to stop pretending there was no problem at all. You were not trying to control them. You were trying to understand whether your connection was real enough to be protected. And now, in the stillness they once avoided, they finally understand the weight of what you were trying to communicate. This realization did not come gently. It arrived like a mirror placed directly before their soul. They could no longer blame timing. They could no longer blame circumstances. They could no longer say they did not know how deeply their actions affected you. They know now. And that is why the message feels urgent. Your soulmate has imagined you moving forward without them. They have pictured you becoming stronger, calmer, and more distant from the pain they once caused. They have wondered whether someone else might notice the qualities they took too long to value. They have wondered whether another person might recognize your loyalty without testing it, receive your affection without questioning it, and choose you without making you feel that love must be earned through endless patience. That thought has unsettled them more than they expected. But listen carefully, this is not merely jealousy. Something deeper is happening. They are not only afraid of losing your attention. They are afraid of losing the version of themselves that only appeared when your love was near. Around you, they felt seen in ways they were not prepared for. You reflected both their beauty and their hidden wounds. You made them want to become more honest, more courageous, more emotionally present. Yet because growth frightened them, they sometimes mistook your presence for pressure. Now they understand that you were not the pressure. You were the invitation. An invitation to stop running from what was real. An invitation to become the person their soul already knew they could be. An invitation to experience love without performance, without games, and without masks. But they hesitated, and hesitation created distance. Do not turn away now. Something huge is waiting for you, because the message they are preparing is not the message you expect. It is not simply, "I miss you." Those words are present, but they are not the center. It is not merely, "I made a mistake." They know those words are too small for everything that has happened. The final message carries a confession they have avoided even within their own thoughts. They are ready to admit that they felt the connection before they ever acknowledged it. Long before their actions showed certainty, their spirit had already responded to you. There was something about your energy that felt familiar. Something about your presence felt like returning to a place they had never physically visited. They tried to explain it through attraction, timing, coincidence, and curiosity, but none of those explanations were enough. The bond reached beneath logic. It touched something ancient inside them, something they could not name without becoming vulnerable. And vulnerability was the place they feared most. So they created reasons to slow down. They questioned what they already felt. They searched for flaws in the connection because certainty felt dangerous. They listened to outside voices that knew nothing of the quiet truth between you. They let fear speak louder than intuition. And each time you sensed them pulling away, you wondered whether you had imagined the depth of what existed. You did not imagine it. But what was real inside them was not yet strong enough to defeat what was wounded inside them. That is the truth heaven wants you to understand. Their distance was not proof that the bond meant nothing. It was evidence that the bond touched places they had spent years avoiding. You awakened emotions they had carefully controlled. You stirred memories, desires, fears, and hopes they had locked away. They wanted the warmth of connection, but they feared the responsibility of protecting it. They wanted your closeness, but they feared what closeness might reveal about their own unhealed heart. And now they have reached the point where avoidance hurts more than honesty. This is why they are forming a last message. Not a last message of bitterness. Not a last message of punishment. Not a last message designed to manipulate your emotions. It is a message written from the edge of surrender, where pride becomes too exhausting to carry and truth becomes the only remaining path. Your soulmate has had a moment recently that changed everything. It may have appeared ordinary from the outside. Perhaps they heard a song they once associated with you. Perhaps they passed a place connected to a memory. Perhaps someone mentioned a detail that unexpectedly brought your name into their thoughts. Perhaps they saw two people speaking with the openness they once denied themselves. Whatever the outer event was, it created an inner collapse. For a moment, every defense disappeared. They saw you as you truly were. They saw themselves as they truly had been. And between those two visions stood the consequence of everything left unsaid. My child, they felt the possibility that they might never again receive the exact kind of love you offered. Not because no one else could ever care for them, but because your love carried a specific language. You noticed what others overlooked. You felt the change in their energy before they explained it. You could sense when their words did not match their heart. You gave them room, but you also saw through their hiding. You offered gentleness without becoming blind to the truth. They remember this now. They remember the times you forgave what they never properly apologized for. They remember the moments you tried to create peace while quietly carrying your own disappointment. They remember how you gave them opportunities to speak, and how often they allowed silence to answer for them. And now that silence is speaking back. It is saying, "You may have waited too long." That sentence has entered their mind repeatedly. It appears when they wake. It follows them through the day. It settles beside them at night. They attempt to push it away, but it returns stronger. You may have waited too long. This is the time limit they feel. It is not a countdown on a clock. It is the awareness that your heart is changing. You are not the same person who once waited without boundaries. You have been learning to value your peace. You have been gathering the pieces of yourself that were scattered through uncertainty. You have been remembering that love should not require you to abandon your dignity. Your soulmate senses this shift. They may not know every detail of your healing, but they feel that your energy is no longer standing still. Something within you has become quieter, and that quietness frightens them more than anger ever could. Anger would mean you were still fighting to be understood. But peace may mean you are preparing to release what repeatedly refused to meet you with clarity. This is why their message feels like a final door. They know that if they speak now, everything could change. They also know that if they remain silent, everything will change without them. Do not skip, because there is a deeper layer. Heaven is not bringing you this message so that you will immediately run toward them. You are not being told to abandon discernment, forget your boundaries, or accept words without evidence. This revelation is not a command to return to confusion. It is an invitation to understand what has been unfolding beneath the surface. The message may come, but your wisdom must remain awake. Their emotion may be real, but emotion alone does not create transformation. Their regret may be sincere, but regret must become responsibility. Their words may move your heart, but their actions must protect it. This is the balance heaven is teaching you now. You can hold compassion without surrendering your self-respect. You can recognize their pain without making it your duty to rescue them. You can listen without forgetting what the silence cost you. You can love someone and still require truth. Your soulmate's final message contains an apology, but the apology is unlike the one you may have imagined. They are not only sorry for a particular action. They are sorry for the version of you they forced you to become in order to survive their uncertainty. They recognize that you had to become more guarded. They know you began questioning instincts that had once been clear. They understand that their inconsistency made you wonder whether you were asking for too much when, in reality, you were asking the wrong person at the wrong stage of their growth to offer what they had not yet learned to give. This realization has humbled them. They have begun seeing that you were not difficult to love. You were difficult to deceive. You could feel when something was missing. You could sense when the truth was incomplete. You noticed emotional distance before it became physical distance. You heard what was hidden between their words. And instead of honoring your perception, they sometimes made you question it. That is one of the truths they now regret most deeply. Stay till the end. The part they have not yet dared to send is approaching, and it carries the confession that could explain why they disappeared emotionally when the bond became strongest. The truth is that they were not only afraid you would leave. They were afraid you would stay long enough to truly know them. To be known is beautiful, but for someone who has survived through hiding, being known can feel like danger. They had spent years presenting controlled versions of themselves. They showed strength when they felt fragile. They showed indifference when they cared deeply. They showed confidence when they were afraid of rejection. They learned to leave first, withdraw first, or create emotional confusion before anyone could reach the places where they felt unworthy. Then you came close. Not forcefully. Not perfectly. But sincerely. And your sincerity became a light. It illuminated what they had hidden from others and what they had hidden from themselves. They felt drawn to that light, yet they feared it would expose everything they believed made them undeserving of love. Instead of trusting you with their truth, they tested your patience. Instead of saying, "I am afraid," they acted distant. Instead of saying, "This matters more than I know how to handle," they behaved as though it mattered less. But their final message tells the truth. It says, in essence, "I acted like I did not care because I cared more than I knew how to survive." Those words have not yet reached you directly, but they exist within them. And they are not the final revelation. There is another truth they have been holding back, one connected to a specific choice they made after your last meaningful interaction. You may have wondered what happened after the silence began. You may have imagined that they simply moved on, forgot, or closed the door without looking back. But that is not what happened. After the distance formed, they made a private decision. At first, the decision was to leave the connection untouched. They convinced themselves that staying away would make the feelings disappear. They told themselves that enough time would reduce your importance. They believed that if they did not speak your name, look at your messages, or revisit your memories, the bond would weaken. For a while, they appeared successful. But what they did not understand was that unspoken love does not always disappear. Sometimes it goes underground. Sometimes it lives quietly beneath daily life, gathering meaning. Sometimes the absence of contact removes distractions and leaves only truth. That is what happened to them. The more they tried to forget, the more clearly they remembered. The more they attempted to replace the feeling, the more distinct your presence became. The more they told themselves the connection was over, the more their soul asked why they were still having conversations with you in their mind. They began imagining what they would say if they had one honest chance. At first, the imagined conversations were defensive. They explained themselves. They justified their actions. They rehearsed reasons. But as time passed, those excuses lost power. In their private conversations with your memory, they could no longer avoid the simple truth: they had been given something meaningful, and fear had shaped their response. That is when the message began. It did not begin as a message to send. It began as a sentence written only to release emotion. Then one sentence became several. Several became a page. A page became something they returned to repeatedly. Each time they returned, they changed the words because the truth kept deepening. They removed the lines designed to protect their pride. They erased the explanations that shifted responsibility. They deleted the words that asked you to understand them without first showing that they understood you. What remained was raw. What remained was honest. What remained was the kind of truth that can only be written when someone finally stops trying to control the outcome. Their message now begins with an admission: I do not know whether I still have the right to ask you to listen. That sentence alone reveals how much has changed. They once assumed your heart would remain open. Now they understand that access to your heart is not a permanent entitlement. It is a sacred trust. And they know they damaged that trust. Something huge is waiting for you, because they have also admitted that they watched for signs of you. Quietly. From a distance. Not necessarily through direct contact, but through memories, mutual spaces, familiar patterns, or moments when they wondered whether you still felt them too. They looked for evidence that the bond had not disappeared. Sometimes they believed they found it. A sudden dream. A repeated reminder. A wave of emotion without explanation. A name appearing unexpectedly. A memory arriving at the exact moment they had tried to let go. They did not know what to call these experiences, but each one brought them back to the message. And now they feel an urgency they cannot explain logically. Something within them is saying, send it before the door closes. They have opened the message many times. Their finger has hovered near the place where hesitation becomes action. They have imagined your reaction. They have imagined no reaction. They have imagined relief, rejection, silence, and forgiveness. Every possible outcome frightens them, but one outcome frightens them most: never telling you the truth at all. My child, this is where heaven asks you to breathe. Do not let anticipation pull you away from your center. The arrival of a message does not define your worth. Their realization does not create your value. You were valuable before they understood you. You were worthy before they regretted losing access to you. Their awakening is not the beginning of your light. It is simply the moment they finally turn toward what had always been shining. You do not need to prove anything when the message comes. You do not need to answer immediately. You do not need to become the version of yourself who once rushed to protect the connection at the expense of your own peace. Let truth reveal itself slowly. Let action speak. Let consistency follow confession. Because the final part of their message contains a promise, and heaven wants you to know the difference between a promise formed by fear and a promise supported by transformation. Your soulmate wants to say they will not repeat the past. They want to say they are ready now. They want to say they have changed. But even they understand that these words require more than emotion. They are wrestling with whether they can become the person their message describes. This struggle is why the message remains unsent. They do not want to reach you with empty hope. They know you have heard enough beautiful words without stable follow-through. They know another temporary awakening could hurt you more than silence. So they are standing between two choices: send the message now while emotion is overflowing, or wait until they can prove that the words are not merely a reaction to the fear of losing you. But time feels short. Your energy is moving. Your healing is deepening. Your life is preparing to open in ways neither of you expected. And somewhere within their soul, they sense that if they do not step forward with honesty soon, the universe will no longer keep the same door open. That does not mean why.